Hello and welcome to my homeland, Illinois, where it is snowy. And very cold, but today I wanted to tell a terrifying story about something that happened while I was traveling this last, well, I don't know, I don't know how long ago it was now. I have a terrible memory for time, but it was this year. And I was driving around. I was living out of my truck every day, so travel hack for you. It really does help. But that's actually where the terror comes in the story. So I was mostly leaving things in the back seat of my truck. The important things anyway, like my camera and my laptop and all my gear would be in the back seat. And the other thing that would be in the back seat is me at night. I would sleep in the back seat, so I had to move everything around every day. So everything was always a mess. And that means that as much as you want to keep things organized and in the same place and like know where everything is and, you know, have nice, pretty areas to cordon everything off in, I kind of didn't have that. I did, but I didn't. And that's a big contributor to the terrifying aspect of the story. So to start off, this combo right here, A7IV and the 7200 G Master Mark II, would kind of often be in the passenger seat. That's kind of the default spot where I would keep them. And I also shoot with the A7R5, so it would have a wider lens, and that would typically be, I have this little spot in my truck, like, it's an F-150, so if anyone has been in or has an F-150, they have that like spot up on the dash that's sort of indented. It's almost like a rectangular bowl kind of thing. The A7R5 with like a 16-30 or a 50 G Master, it's perfect in there. So that's where I leave it most of the time if I'm traveling with it. Unless I'm parked somewhere and I don't want people to see it. But if I'm driving around or if I'm out, you know, taking photos, it waits in that spot until I get to where I need to be. So it has its spot. A7IV has its spot. Well, when I was in Canada, I was visiting a friend and I cleared the A7IV off of the passenger seat because I wanted to drive us somewhere, and obviously camera's in the way. So I put it in the back seat with everything else. For some reason, I didn't like the idea of the A7IV sitting on the back seat. I think because it's leather, I just thought it would be super easy. Maybe like driving, I'd hit you know, the brakes and it would slide off the seat onto the floor, which yes, probably would have happened. So I get where I was coming from there. But what I did instead was put it on the floor in the back seat. And for anybody who has like history with off-road vehicles, or you hike a lot or whatever, you've probably looked into really good weather mats that will protect the carpet best as possible. Some of you might already know where I'm going with this. I have WeatherTech / Husky whatever style mats in my truck. They're the really slick, plasticky kind that you're not worried about stuff getting on them. They just gather everything and you can just spray them off with a hose. Well, turns out the materials that a G Master Mark II and an A7IV are made out of slip really well. They move around quite a bit on that kind of material. Now, just driving around with it on the back seat, you know, on the passenger side in the floor, I just put some bags next to it and, you know, thought, all right, that'll hold it. It won't slip around too much back there. It'll be fine. And I kind of forgot that it was back there. And me and my friend were getting ready to go somewhere, and I thought, all right, I'll take my truck. It'll be fun. Well, I opened the passenger side so that I could move another bag. I already cleared some of the stuff, but I hadn't cleared the passenger seat entirely. So I said, okay, let me move the rest of this crap out of the way. And I did. So I opened the passenger side door, and then I opened the rear passenger door. And as I opened the rear passenger door, I did not think anything of it, but the A7IV had slid against said door. And like I said, the floor mats are very slippery. They're that plastic kind of, you know, just a slick material for a camera to be sitting on. So anyway, enough buildup. We know where that's going. The camera slipped clean out of the truck. It fell. The camera fell directly out of the truck onto asphalt because that is what I was parked on. And I think I got extremely lucky because I had my lens hood like this out, you know, as you do with lens hoods, the way they're meant to be. But you know, when you're storing your camera, a lot of the time you might flip it around, leave it. It's a little bit more compact and you don't really have to worry about as much size. That's usually what I do. I usually have my lens hoods flipped around and I don't flip them back until I'm out shooting. Well, I got lucky this time because if you think about a lens hood, kind of like a vehicle, where you see like the crash test dummy videos where they take a brand new car and just launch it into a wall with a dummy in it and see how much damage it would do to a human. You know, the front of the cars these days are kind of designed to crumple like a beer can to take most of that impact. And if you think about a lens hood, depending on the quality and how well designed and materials and all that it is, it's kind of like that. Because if you look at it, you can flex it. If you squeeze hard enough, it's rigid. It's very rigid. It is rigid, but you can get it to flex. And thank God for that, because I will tell you right now, the way that this camera fell was, if you've been in the back of an F-150, you know, they're not they're not low to the ground, let's just put it that way. And this camera fell directly like this onto the front, like fully lens hood onto asphalt. And I think the flexed just enough that it actually saved the rest of the camera from just getting absolutely obliterated. This fell face first, this end first, straight onto concrete with no damage other than a few marks. There's some marring you might probably not be able to tell on that corner there. And this button right here has a little bit, but it's all functional. It all still works. And I was actually amazed by that. Like, I'm not even kidding, for like the full day or two after that this happened, I would just take the camera and I would just sit here like this. I'd be like, how is it still working? How is it still doing this? And you know, when you think about the physics of how it fell fell lens first. And I think, like I said, the lens cap probably flexed enough to take a lot of that impact and probably save the lens. But when it bounced, because it's flexy, it kind of bounced. What I believe it did, I saw most of it, but you know, it's hard to remember when it's this traumatic. It bounced and it went like this. And this bottom corner of the A7IV just smacked concrete. And then it all leveled out and sort of did this and, you know, finally settled into the ground. And I was absolutely positive for a good, you know, minute or two as I was inspecting it, as I picked it up, I was like, that's an insurance claim. That thing's destroyed. There's no way. There's no way. And, you know, it wasn't really anyone's fault. Like, nobody, it was just accident, you know. Nobody could really, I mean, I guess I could have thought harder about it. And even if I had just opened the other back door, you know, it's kind of just like a fate thing. But this is sort of just to be a cautionary tale. First of all, maybe don't travel with your camera on the floor of your vehicle. Lesson learned. Second of all, keep the lens hood facing out as often as possible, because honestly, I think the only way that this could have survived that fall is with this lens hood facing out. Like, you know, to fall out of the back of an F-150 clear off the floor, that's still it's probably a foot or two above the ground. I mean, there's no easy like way for me to just believe that the camera surviving that wasn't a fluke. That's how I'm gonna put it. I'm like, I just don't feel like I could do that same thing a dozen more times. And I feel like, yeah, maybe if it landed exactly the same, it would make it. But it was a hard fall. It felt like when you're, you know, watching something in slow motion and you're like, ooh, not good. Not very good at all. I was very much concerned, very much like convinced that it was gone. I thought it was a write-off, which really sucks because, you know, I was out on a, you know, month-long road trip and I was like, oh no, I still got weeks left. Like, Am I going to be down a camera? Anyway, that's my cautionary tale. Always keep your lens hoods on. Don't travel with your camera laying on the back floor of your car or the front floor or whatever. And always keep in mind, insurance is a very good idea, because I got lucky, but I also had insurance. So I knew that if it did get demolished by said fall, I would be fine. It would suck. I would be sad. It's my camera. You know, I love my camera. I do care about my A7IV. It's my first Sony, my first full frame. If you go places that are rugged, like, first of all, just going on hikes like I wanted insurance. You're going to a lot of places that you could get hurt. Your camera can get hurt. And I spent a lot of time on, you know, salty coasts with sea spray hitting me in the camera. And I was in the East Coast in Maine and Rhode Island, and I was on the West Coast in Oregon, Washington, California, Vancouver area. I was in a lot of areas where you're gonna get kind of dirty. And that is definitely a consideration. If you want to have your camera gear for a long time, you should probably treat it nice, but also treat it like you won't have it for a long time. Treat it like it might disappear at any second. I've been talking about dropping my camera. I'm also here with some buffalo. I'm at Buffalo Rock State Park in Illinois, which obviously has buffalo. And part of the reason I came here was because it's a nice secluded place to walk and tell you a story. But also, this is a pretty good combo to use to take pictures of buffalo when they are roughly 15 feet away from you. I mean, come on, look at that. Where else can you just go and just take pictures of buffalo like they're your neighbor walking up to say hi? Hopefully you learned something, learn from my mistakes. I got lucky. I had a real drop, and it probably should have been a problem, and it turned out being okay. So learn from my mistakes and don't do those things. Don't leave it, you know, don't leave your camera sitting in a precarious spot unless you're a daredevil. So that's all from me. I think this is my final arm switch. My arms are getting tired, which is funny because I'm shooting on a DJI Action 5. Like, it's exponentially easier than holding up a mirrorless camera in front of your face. But I'm lazy. So anyway, I got my pictures of buffalo. I told you my harrowing tale, and I'll see you in the next one.